Genesis chapter 45. Remember, Joseph is a type and shadow of Jesus. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him. And he cried, Cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. This is all a picture of the rapture. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard. Now, this is the voice like a trumpet at the rapture. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Doth my father yet live? And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near. And he said, I am Joseph your brother, whom ye sold into Egypt. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither. For God did send me before you to preserve life. You see how this is all a picture of Jesus? For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in the which there shall neither be earing nor harvest. You see that? 2 years into the 7-year famine, Jesus reveals himself as this is Joseph, but this is an earthly type and shadow of the rapture, Jesus, and us. Verse 7, And God sent me before you to preserve a posterity in the earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Revelation chapter 12. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. And he hath made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not. You know how it talks about if the Lord tarries? This is all a picture of God the Father, the Son Jesus, and him rapturing us. It's amazing. Now, another reason why the 2024 Feast of Trumpets is a very interesting time for a rapture is because I've shown how in Genesis chapter 45, which is 20 plus 25, the year 2025, there is a great deliverance, and they go up to their father's house, which is Jacob, symbolic of the father. And this great deliverance was 2 years into the 7-year famine. Now, if we take that pattern, and here's the key, if we start the Hebrew New Year on the Feast of Trumpets. Now, that is what they do these days. But back in the day, the New Year started at Nisan. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. For instance, our year 2021. Well, instead of their year starting where our 2022 year starts, if it starts on Feast of Trumpets, it starts 3 months before our 2022 starts, right? And that is the Feast of Trumpets way to look at it. So 2021 turns into 2022 in about September of 2021, late September, early October, depending on the moon cycle. But the traditional way is starting it on Nisan, so it's the exact opposite. It would start 3 months into 2022. So their 2022 would start in about late March, early April in 2022. That is if you start the new year on Nisan. But now, knowing that, let's say we started on Feast of Trumpets. Well, this is what makes it very interesting, is that the year The year 2022, or in the Hebrew 5782, was the Shemitah year, which is the seventh year, which is the year of release or rest. And before 2022, the 6 years before that, was the 6 years of work. That's how the Hebrew calendar works. So it works off of 7-year cycles. 6 years, and then the seventh year, or the Sabbath year, is the year of rest, the year of release, etc. And it's called the Shemitah. Okay, so the Shemitah was 2022. Now you could look this up online. It's common knowledge. Okay. So let's say the Shemitah started on Feast of Trumpets. So their 2022 started in our 2021 in September. Now let's take it to, okay, so there's the Shemitah. Now we're using the Feast of Trumpets. So then the first year of the next 7-year cycle would be 2023, or on the Hebrew calendar, 5783. So if we start their 2023 at Feast of Trumpets, it would start in September, October 2022. So let's take it 2 years up. Because remember, the Genesis 45 pattern, there was a great deliverance 2 years into the 7-year famine. So we go from the Feast of Trumpets in 2022 up to the Feast of Trumpets in 2023, which we just passed. That would be 1 year into the 7 years here. Now let's take it the second year, and we're at the Feast of Trumpets in 2024, which what this whole video is about. October 2nd to the 4th, which is actually 24, 2 and 4. And that would be 2 years into the 7-year famine, this last 7 years that we're in. And, well, you land on the Feast of Trumpets. That's a pattern for a rapture there, plus all the other things I've shown you. Now, if we started it on Nisan, which is the exact opposite, then in 2023, that would be the first year of this next 7-year cycle. So 2023 on Nisan would be in about April of this year. It started earlier. And we go 1 year into the 7 years, which would be April in 2024. And then 2 years in, which would be March 29th or 30th, almost April in 2025. That's 2 years into the famine. Now, the interesting thing about that is that right after that is Passover. And that's where I also think the high probability for the rapture would be in 2025 Passover. But either way, they're in the same vicinity. And in my mind, the first date that I'm going to really take serious is the Feast of Trumpets in 2024. And then after that, if it doesn't happen, Passover in 2025. And the max that we do not go past, I know this, is Feast of Trumpets in 2025. Which, as I've shown, if you type in Feast of Trumpets, the Gematria calculator, it equals 923. In which the Feast of Trumpets only lands on 923 in 2025. But we don't go past 2025. 20 times 25 is 500. That's Antichrist in the Greek. But in the Hebrew, it's God ascends. And that is symbolic of us. Because God is in us, the hope of glory, Christ. And the man-child ascended, which is God ascends. And then there were 42 months. That's Revelation 12. And then in Exodus chapter 40, you see the 40 Jubilees from Christ. Exodus chapter 40, the glory of God was on the tabernacle. That is the earth. Now, back then it was just a tabernacle, but it's prophecy patterns that extend. And the key is that the glory of God had to ascend up so that Israel can move forward and continue on their journey. That's a picture of the rapture. And like I said, 20 times 25 is 500. In the Hebrew, that's God ascends. These patterns are all in the Bible. They're everywhere. Like I said, the Bible is computer code. Another interesting thing pointing to the rapture at 2024 Feast of Trumpets is this. Day count from October 14th eclipse in 2023, which is about 11 days from now, to October 2nd eclipse 2024 Feast of Trumpets is 354 days. Number 354 in Greek is ascension, or taking up, which would be 2025 if the new year began at trumpets. God bless. So again, this is another very interesting pattern pointing at a Feast of Trumpets 2024 rapture.